Nice Micro Monday, how Silicon Valley ruins everything. So, if you are like me, who is interested in free software and thinks about the ethics of software, you might be familiar with this forum on Reddit called r/Stallman was right. So this is a place where people collect news articles about how modern technology is used by big corporations and governments to exploit just regular people. So it is about data harvesting, so user data harvesting using facial recognition software out in the public, and it's just generally the use of modern technologies, of modern computer technologies specifically, to somehow encroach on freedoms and liberties of people and violate their privacies, different rights to their privacies, or just the concept of privacy if we want to elevate the discussion above current laws just on a philosophical level. And this is called Stallman was right because Richard Stallman, who is of course the founder of the Free Software Foundation, have been warning us for decades how software where the exact workings of the software is hidden from the user, so it's proprietary software where the source code is not available and you are not free to modify the software. So this proprietary software is dangerous, and he outlined ways how this software can be dangerous, and for many years people just thought he's kind of paranoid, no one would do that, and now we just take it for granted that sure, big companies spy on us, but it doesn't matter because they make our lives so convenient. And so this is kind of what I wanted to talk about, but not specifically about these Reddit threads here, but something I found on Twitter, of all places. So some other people who are not like the Reddit nerds also take notice how Silicon Valley tech companies and this kind of this use of technology where we disregard user freedoms leads down a dark path. And the thing that he is focusing on here is how Silicon Valley companies develop applications which solve problems that are not really that big problems, but in turn have a big downside. So one of the things that Silicon Valley ruined is taxis by Uber. So the main point is that taxi companies and taxi drivers usually had a lot of experience on how to transport people in a city in passenger vehicles, and so they had their businesses set up to be profitable and the drivers to be paid, whatever it was found to be worth their time to drive those passengers around, but in general the costs were set, so it's sustainable business model in general. So the cars, the fuel and the labor could be sustainably financed from the fares, but Uber wants to take over the taxi industry by lowering prices, and how they lower prices is they use people who have no idea about the total cost of being a taxi driver. So they would take these rides for much lower price than what would make the business model sustainable, for example. And there is Airbnb, which tries to take over hotels and regular bread and breakfast places which are run professionally by people who have experience in the field, or at least, who, if it's a new place, is still run by people who probably researched and try to set their prices in a way that's going to be sustainable. They try to replace it with people who just, rent out their apartments for short periods of time for some quick money. And some people actually say that in the end, in a lot of Airbnb places, you will end up paying twice as much than what was listed as a price. I don't know about that. I don't really use these apps. But anyways, so they just they destroy hotels by making prices unsustainably low. And home security, where Google basically wants you to install a device for your home security that sends data to Google for some reason. And well, what else? Thermostats. So it seems like some people have thermostats that are smart, which means that they know better the temperature you want than you. Well, or at least, they are smart, so someone from far away can send them a message to, come on, these guys set their aircon too low, so let's raise the temperature there. That's very good for someone, not for the people who installed the thermostat, of course. Night sky, treadmills, I don't know how a treadmill can be ruined. How a treadmill can be ruined by Silicon Valley technology, I don't know, but it seems like it happened. Doorbells, things like that. There was somewhere physical maps, I guess. Yeah, but anyways, physical maps. I used to have maps on paper to the cities where I lived, and I had a nice time just looking at them and like tracing the big roads and the bus lines and subway lines and things like that. Those don't really exist in any kind of meaningful form, unfortunately, but that's not like the worst problem with what Silicon Valley did, our maps. The biggest problem is that now most of our navigation software also needs constant internet connection, so they don't just rely on the satellites really, really far away up in the sky. They also need the constant cellular data connection, so they can always download the parts of the map where you are at in real time, which is really nice if you don't want to have all your maps saved. But why wouldn't you want to have all your maps saved? I don't know, but it's of course also a great thing that the service that is making the map is always knowing where you are. It's good. And I mean, there are some legitimate uses for that. So I know like traffic sensitive navigation applications use your current location and speed to like trying to figure out which parts of the map are more congested and which parts of the map are less congested. We can argue if this is like the good way to do the traffic aware navigation or not, but that's not the point here. The point here is that there was, of course, because it's Twitter, so people respond to these things. There was a very interesting response which I think encompasses the way a lot of regular people, I mean people who don't really think much about the software freedoms and ethics of software, think about this. So the response is like, remember when as a woman I could live more dangerously and walk multiple Manhattan avenues late at night desperately trying to find a cab? So I don't know, did this person ever hear about taxi, like dispatcher centers, where they dispatcher centers where they dispatch the taxis for you? So in some of the cities where I lived, that you can easily find a taxi just going around looking for customers. There are cities where it's not really the thing the taxi drivers would do. There are cities where taxi drivers explicitly rely on the dispatchers to dispatch them to the customers, and usually these dispatcher centers have very easy to remember phone numbers, and even if you don't remember them, you can, if you just see a taxi zooming down the road, there is usually the phone number of the dispatcher center that has dispatched that taxi cab on their side, so you can glance, read, call, and get a taxi. And even the cities where this kind of phone dispatching is not really a thing, if I was at a remote area, I usually was there for a restaurant or for a hotel, and I could go to the front desk and ask them to call me a cab. And let's not forget that Uber is not the only way to have an application on your phone to hail a ride. Okay, so actually there are places where you have applications on your phone where you can just call a regular cab with it. It works like there is nothing in Uber's technology that requires them to use this kind of ride-hailing software for the purposes of hailing underpaid, unsustainably paid regular people instead of professional taxi drivers. And you can have whatever opinion you have about regulation on taxi drivers, but the thing is that Uber is cheaper because of their bad practices, the practices that are bad for the drivers, that are a lot of times not really conforming to regulations, so that's why there are a lot of cities where you don't have Uber. And you don't need these points to have an application on your phone with a map to hail drivers. Same thing about the maps. This person says that, or get lost while driving on a remote stretch of road. Well, okay, if we go with the original poster and we only consider the paper maps, that is like a real concern. But let's not forget, we used to have navigation devices, and even there are navigation software which use offline maps. So you can have a GPS navigation system in your hand which helps you to get out of a pickle like that without the device having to be constantly connected to a third-party server through the internet. And the same with the doorbells, or not be able to see who is banging on my door. I hate these apps that keep me safe. So, well, I don't know, but I used to live in a house back in a time when there was no internet in general, and computers were not really common, and we would have those things on our doors that are called peepholes, where you can look through your eyes and see who is on the other side of the door. We used to have these closed circuit phones where someone at the entrance of the apartment complex could just dial in your number, your house number, and your phone in the home would ring and you could pick it up. And there is no reason for not doing it with a camera and a screen without connecting it to the internet and using some third party. So I think I wanted to bring this post up because it is such it's a very knee-jerk reaction, very short-sighted reaction. We tend to think that all the advantages that these big tech companies bring to us, they just have to come with the disadvantages. So we just take it it's about a zero-sum game. I would argue that actually it's negative sum, so you got off much worse due to the disadvantages than where you get with the advantages they provide you. But what people don't think about that you could have solutions where you don't have these disadvantages, but that would unfortunately mean that these big trillion and million and billion dollar companies wouldn't be able to get as many advantages out of their users. So it's very positive for the companies. I think it's in some negative for the users. That's why we need free software. Okay, nice Micro Monday, and this was how Silicon Valley ruins everything.